Hello and welcome to Masada. I'm Joel, your tour guide in Israel today, and we've got a cable car waiting for us to go up to the top of the mountain, so let's go. The cable car line is around 900 meters or 3,000 feet long, and the vertical distance between the bottom and the top station is around 290 meters or 1,000 feet. The top station is only 33 meters or barely 100 feet above sea level, making the cable car at Masada the lowest aerial tramway in the entire world. The square structure that we see below us now is a partially rebuilt Roman army camp from 2,000 years ago. It's the only army camp to have undergone any form of rebuilding, and the other 7 have been left as they were discovered. The journey to the top takes only around 3 minutes, which comfortably makes it the easiest way to get to the top of the mountain. Below us we can see some people that woke up nice and early and are already making their way down from the top of Masada. The path that they're making their way down here on the eastern side is called the Snake Path. The path involves a vertical climb of around 400 meters or 1,300 feet and takes at least 45 minutes for most people to climb. It's one of the most iconic hikes in Israel, incredible views of course, and you'll certainly feel that you've had a workout by the time you reach the top of the mountain. You'll often hear tour guides in Israel say, once upon a time all of this place was under the sea. And it's true that most of Israel at one time or another was under the sea. It's for this reason, for example, that when we look at Masada, we're seeing a huge mass of limestone, a sedimentary rock formed beneath the sea by the accumulation or depositing of organic materials on the seabed. Looking at Masada, we can see the horizontal lines where the organic materials settled in place, pushed down the pressure from the materials settling above. Interestingly, in many mountainous areas, those horizontal layers are no longer horizontal due to pressures from beneath the Earth's surface. Here we can see that the lines are still perfectly horizontal. That's because Masada is what in geography and geology is called a horst, a raised block of the Earth's crust that has lifted or remained stationary while the land on either side has fallen down or subsided. For those of you who are not such big fans of being suspended in mid-air, you'll be happy to know that in a few moments' time we'll be getting out of the cable car and starting our walk to the top of the mountain. Along with the history of the events that took place here at Masada, one of the other things we'll be doing today is discussing Masada as an ideological symbol. As we step out of the cable car, you'll notice that we're still not going to be right at the top of the mountain, but rather there's still a short climb to make. When the cable car was first opened in 1971, there was a lot of discussion as to whether the cable car should take visitors all the way to the top of the mountain. The prevalent opinion was that Masada, a symbol for many of struggle, resistance and independence, shouldn't be climbed or conquered without making a little bit of an effort, and as such the decision was taken that the top station of the cable car would still be a few feet from the top of the mountain in order that every single visitor will have the experience of climbing the mountain, whether it be all the way from the bottom or just from the top cable car station. From here our gaze moves to the northeast. Across the Dead Sea we can see the mountains of Jordan, and down below we can see the visitors centre and the base of Masada, together with 2 of the Roman army camps. From here we'll start to make our way up towards the mountain fortress. Just before we head inside, let's take another look at the landscape around us. We're currently oriented towards the south. And from here we'll move our gaze from the south across to the east with the hills of Jordan in the distance beyond the Dead Sea. Below us we can see Army Camp number 1 and 2 of the Romans from 2,000 years ago, and we're now looking across at the northern portion of the Dead Sea. We can see how the level of the Dead Sea is falling by around 90 centimeters or 3 feet per year. And below us we can see the channels carved into the Chavar rock by the rainwaters that flow down towards the Dead Sea in the winter. From here, let's now finally head inside into the mountain fortress of Masada. Masada was first fortified by the Hasmoneans in the 1st century BCE. Following the defeat of the Seleucid Greek army by the Maccabees, something that we speak about at the time of the festival of Hanukkah, the Hasmonean dynasty was established. The land was ruled over by a succession of Hasmonean kings until the Romans gained a foothold in Judea in the mid-1st century BCE. According to Roman historian Josephus Flavius, it was under the Hasmonean king Alexander Yanai that a fortress was first established here at Masada. In fact, the name for the place in Hebrew is Masada, which comes from the Hebrew word Metsudah, which means fortress. Though settlement here began under the Jews, the Hasmoneans, almost everything that we will see today was created under the rule of the Romans, predominantly King Herod the Great. In front of us is a model of Masada. We're looking from the west, and we can see that the drop down from the western side of Masada into the valley is just 90 meters or 300 feet, as opposed to the 400 meters or 1300 feet drop on the eastern side that we came up. At the northern end of the mountain is a major 3-level palace, the later of 2 palaces built here at Masada by King Herod. And the 4-meter or 13 feet high casemate walls that Herod built around the plateau totaled an incredible 1,300 meters or 4,300 feet in length. On our tour today, not only will we explore the archaeological remains and the origins of Masada, but we will also seek to gain an understanding of the events that led to Masada's downfall and the impact and importance of those events until today. As we alluded to earlier on, the majority of the structures here at Masada were built during the early rule of King Herod the Great as King of Judea. Much of the construction materials were actually taken from the mountain itself. Here on the left-hand side we can see an example of a quarry. The rock removed from here was used to build many of the impressive structures that we'll see as we continue to explore. The major period of excavation here at Masada was between 1963 and 1965 in an expedition led by the Israeli archaeologist and former Chief of Staff of the Israeli Armed Forces, Yigael Yadin. Notice in front of us on the wall a black line. We'll see this line across our travels here at Masada, and the line illustrates which parts have been restored in order to give us a better idea of how things looked and which parts are original. I once guided a group that when I explained this to them, they asked me which side of the line is the original. So I'll let you in on a secret and let you know that what's above the line is restored. We've now entered into the Commandant's quarters. Located close to the entrance to the fortress from the Snake Path, as well as to the storerooms and the northern palace of King Herod, it was ideally located for the guards to protect the king and those things that were important to him. As we make our way past the stucco columns, we can take a look inside one of the rooms of the Commandant's residence. We're immediately struck by the beautiful bright-coloured frescoes upon the wall. Fresco is a technique for mural painting, which is executed upon freshly laid or wet plaster. The water allows the dry powder pigment to merge with the plaster, and when it sets, the painting becomes very much part of the wall. The word fresco literally means fresh in Italian. And for those of you that may have joined me in Herodian, you may remember that in the theatre there we saw another technique, secco, or painting on dry plaster. Certainly easier and less demanding, but less enduring in the long term. The frescoes here were discovered during the archaeological digs conducted by Yigael Yadin in the 1960s. But as time went by, the effects of the weather, the high salt content in the air, and mistreatment by visitors to the site saw them removed and placed into storage. In fact, it was only 7 years ago that roofs were placed upon the rooms here at the Commandant's residence in order that the newly restored frescoes could be returned to the rooms. From here we'll continue on to the courtyard at the entrance to King Herod's northern palace, one of 2 major palaces that he built here at Masada. You'll notice once more the stucco columns, covered with plaster to give the effect of marble. And heading into one of the rooms leading off from the courtyard, we can see another beautiful example of the frescoes on the walls, with their bold colours and clear geometric designs. Notice once more very clearly the black line on the wall, denoting that which is original and that which has been recreated in order to give us more of an impression of how things would have looked at the time of King Herod. From here, we'll step on out of the rooms and back into the courtyard. It's now time to go and thoroughly explore the complex attached to the Northern Palace. As we glimpse the gleaming turquoise waters of the Dead Sea to the east, let's take a look at a model of the palace and the complex surrounding it. Here on the southern side we can see the quarry, and to the right the courtyard at the entrance to the palace complex. Behind it we can see a series of storerooms, 29 long rooms that we'll make our way through in a few moments' time. On the very northern edge of Masada is Herod's northern palace, with spectacular views to the surrounding area. Behind the palace and to the west of the northern storerooms is the public bathhouse. Returning to the palace, notice how it's built into the mountain itself and is on 3 separate levels. We'll be exploring all of this and more as we continue on our tour. And as you saw on the model, our next destination is the storerooms. As we mentioned briefly at the model, the storeroom complex of Masada had 29 long rooms built by King Herod in the 1st century BCE to hold food, liquids and weapons. The Roman historian Josephus Flavius describes the storeroom complex in his book The Wars of the Jews. According to Josephus, "For here had been stored a mass of corn, amply sufficient to last for years, abundance of wine and oil, besides every variety of pulse and piles of dates." Talking of dates, a number of seeds were found here in the storerooms during the archaeological excavations of the 1960s. In the mid-2000s, those 2,000-year-old date seeds found their way into the hands of Dr. Elaine Soloway at the Center of Sustainable Agriculture at the Arava Institute in the Negev Desert. Dr. Soloway managed to successfully germinate one of those ancient seeds, and it sprouted into a young date palm known as Methuselah, named after the oldest person in the Bible. Among the significant finds discovered in the storerooms were a large number of storage vessels, unique in quantity and bearing ink inscriptions. Among the inscriptions are those noting a shipment of amphorae to Herod, king of Judea, in 19 BCE from southern Italy and a supplier named Lucius Lanius. According to Josephus, Herod had a special wine servant, and among the delicacies served at Masada was a fish sauce known as garum from southern Spain. Fish bones from this sauce were found in the remains of one of the vessels. Returning to the story of Methuselah and the ancient Judean dates, the ancient date palms native to this area were valued for their large size, delicious flavour and their medicinal properties. Unfortunately, Methuselah, the modern reincarnation of these ancient date palms, is a male tree and as such wasn't able to give fruit. However, in recent times, further seeds have been germinated, and incredibly today it's actually possible to eat extinct Judean dates that haven't been eaten for 2,000 years. We're now making our way up the stairs to the northern palace here at Masada. The palace's construction was part of a second phase of building here at Masada, which began around 25 BCE. As we'll see, the northern palace was erected on 3 steps of natural cliff protruding to the north. The top level of the palace is built up higher than the other structures here on the northern side of Masada. From here we can look back towards the storerooms and the public bathhouse that we'll visit a little later on. Our vantage point gives us a dramatic view of the Syrian-African Rift Valley, making its way southwards, with Jordan on the other side of the Dead Sea. Turning our heads to the north, we can visibly see the reduction in level of the Dead Sea. Today the Dead Sea is split into 2 basins, the northern and the southern, and here we can see the meeting point between the two. Here below us we can see once more the visitors' centre, along with a number of the later Roman army camps from the time of the siege. Now it's time to click on my second Masada video to continue on the tour. See you there.